Yo, what is going on, you rancid rufflet? So I was gonna come at you guys with this video every Monday. I wasn't able to get a video out yesterday, so I'm coming at you with it today, which is Tuesday. We're taking a look at some deck lists that I just thought were really cool from over the weekend. The first one is gonna be my own TempoZard list that I want to go a little bit more in depth on. Let you guys know my thought behind the cards that I'm playing and some cards specifically that I really like. So let's go ahead and let's get into it. So it is a TempoZard list. So we have the 4 Jirachi, 2 Blacephalon, and then the other attackers, 2 Cramorant, 1 Heatran, 1 Rechizard. I guess I'll start here. The first thing I want to talk about is Heatran, which you don't see in every TempoZard list, and I didn't play it for a while myself, but had I tested it, I probably would have been playing it for a long time now. I recently added it in, I don't know, 2 weeks ago when I finally tried it out, and it's just so ridiculously good. It opens up so many options for lines of play in so many matchups that I can't see myself not playing this card anymore. It's just so good in the deck. So I definitely recommend, if you guys aren't playing Heatran in your TempoZard, put it in or just copy paste this list and then play that, because the Heatran is just so insanely good in this deck. I would 100% play it from here on out. Wouldn't even consider playing any other cards. So yeah, check or put the Heatran out. Try out the Heatran in the list. So good against Luke Metal and ADP specifically. In those matchups against ADP, it allows you to either, if they open up with the ADP or open up with the Zacian, get a KO on the Zacian, or just hit the ADP and then set up for that Hot Burn GX KO on the following turn into the ADP. Whereas if you use the Rechizard and you go second and you double blaze KO with Zacian, you can't quite one-hit KO their ADP anymore, because you use your GX attack, which means you could Flare Strike it for 230, but you'd much rather be able to KO it. Whereas with the Heatran, if you KO the Zacian or KO a Zacian in their active, then you can go Hopper and GX for 300 still on the next turn to KO the ADP, or you could still take other routes like Attach and Boss KO to Dene if you whiff the Welder for the next 3 energy, or you could even Boss up a Zacian and take a knockout there. And of course, you have the other routes you can take in the matchup where you just kind of Cramorant stuff. And if they put down Mawile early, plus a Dene, you can go Cramorant Mawile into Cramorant to Dene, into Blacephalon KO, whatever their active is on their next turn. So there's always that route open as well, but the Heatran opens up a whole nother route to work with. And even in other matchups, being able to just go, I want to take a knockout on their active, but I don't have an attacker, but I have the Welder plus 2 energy. And let's say you know the Heatran's in the deck, or even if you don't know what it is, you're just going to play like it's in the deck, you could Welder to a Jirachi. Or you have Mew in play because you open Mew, Welder to Mew, and then you get a Cherish Ball and a Switch card, and then you switch into the Heatran, and then the Heatran is knocking out their active, whatever it is. If you're up against an Eternatus and they open to Yveltal, let's say they whiffed Energy, or whiffed something like that, so you're like, I just want to take a knockout this turn, so you just switch the Heatran to the active and take the knockout like that. So it opens up those lines of play against literally any deck where you're just like, I want to attack whatever their active is. It only has 100 HP, whatever. I don't have an attacker, but I have the Welder plus the energy. You can Welder anywhere and then switch into the Heatran and then attack. So being able to have that kind of access to an attacker is super nice as well. It's another great reason to play the Heatran. Going back over to the attackers, play 2 Blacephalon. This is pretty standard. There's so many matchups where you want 2 Blacephalon against single prize decks, or even depending on how the prize trade ends up going against the VMAX decks. Sometimes you want to go Blau to only feed them 2 1 prizers back to back. So it can still be important to have the 2 Blacephalon around, so still play 2 of those. One card that some people play the 1 of is the Cramorant. I've been keeping around 2 Cramorant, and maybe I should try out the 1 Cramorant. I haven't tried it out quite yet, but I feel like I use double Cramorant often enough where I want to keep it. Also, in some matchups, it's just really important to have as your first attacker, up against Eternatus. VMAX is a very good one, or any VMAX deck really. You want to be able to go Spit Shot whatever Pokemon they're looking to set up a lot of times, or even against Mewtwo decks as well. If playing up against Psychic Mewtwo or something, they have the Mewtwo on the bench and they attach to it and pass, and they have a Dedenne in their active or something. You don't really want to KO that Dedenne because then you risk getting stamped to 1 late game. You want to Spit Shot and hit their Mewtwo. So if you play 1 and you prize it, then you don't have access to it. Or even if you just play 1, it's that much harder to find, right? If you're just playing Dede Change or Crobat, or in the opening hand, you're less likely to have the Cramorant. So and I have games too where in the middle of the game, you take that first 2 prize knockout, or you get 2 prize cards somehow, and they're just all right, Cramorant snipe to Dene into Cramorant plus Zigzagoon net, snipe a Crobat, and win the game that way. So I feel like that comes up often enough where I want to keep around the double Cramorant, but I'm definitely open to trying out the single Cramorant. Now that I've been seeing so many people play 1 Cramorant, and some people go with 1 Cramorant plus an ordinary route, so you still have access to 2 Cramorants. It's just not potentially as immediate and can be a little bit harder to pull off when you'd want it. But still been rocking the 2 Cram, still loving that a ton. So 2 Cram still in here, and then Heatran, Rechizard, and of course 2 Blacephalon, because it's just too good. And you could argue to go down to 1, because in the VMAX matchups where you kind of use the Reshizard and the Cramorant and the Heatran early on, and then you go into the Blacephalon to draw your last 3 prize cards. You get that last KO for your last 3 prize cards with just the one Blacephalon, and that happens a lot. That does happen a lot, where you use one Blacephalon and it just your last 3 prize cards. The problem there is finding it sometimes. Having 2 of them allows you to like bench it, and then your opponent has to make the decision to Marnie or Boss KO or Blacephalon. And if you have both, if you know you have both in the deck, then you can just go find the second one. So it's almost like a little bit of a bait play like that. And then there's also the argument, or there's also the reason behind playing 2 is that if you only play 1 and you draw those first 3 prize cards, the second one could just be prized. And if the second one's just prized in the last 3 prize cards, well, then you don't have your closer. So playing 2, I don't know, it kind of just makes a lot of sense. And also, if you play against those 1 prize matchups like the Spiritomb or the Mad Party, having 2 Blacephalon is definitely very good in those matchups. And speaking of those matchups, we have the Mew in here, which isn't really in here for those matchups, although it is very good against the Mad Party and the Spiritomb to give you like another 1 prize attacker to work with. The real reason it's in here to protect our bench from stuff like mostly Rapid Strike, but I've been considering cutting Mew because 1 prize decks are becoming less popular, so has Rapid Strike, and although Rapid Strike would get pretty tough without Mew, it feels like it's already kind of a tough matchup anyways, even with the Mew, because like finding all your pieces with this deck can be pretty tough. Like it's not hard to get an attacker set up and attacking, but then if you also want Mew in play, and then you also want Mewtwo to put a Welder on top of your deck from Marnie, you can't get everything. So like some stuff just doesn't, you can't find everything. So I've been considering just cutting the Mew, especially with like Mad Party and Spiritomb becoming way less popular. They were decently popular a little while ago, but they're becoming kind of falling off the map a little bit. So I've been considering cutting the Mew, but it is really good to protect your bench. It gives you a chance, I feel like, against Pikarom, besides them like dead drawing, or you drawing very lucky, or you getting really lucky. Otherwise, besides that, you don't really have a great shot against Pikarom. Pikarom is a pretty tough matchup, but Mew does help quite a bit, because towards that late game scenario where they hit you with the stamp and then kind of just don't take a knockout and then tag ball on the following turn, you can have Mew in play and they just can't tag ball, so they have to take a knockout, which means you get access to the draw from Oricorio, which is what they're trying to prevent, and then you have a chance to get back into the game and have a really big turn to close it out. So Mew does help against Pikarom. They're still favored, I think, even with the Mew, but it gives you a chance. And then even against like Mirror Match or other decks that play Cramorant, it is useful against that, like a Victini VMAX deck with a Cramorant or something. The Mew is also helpful for those scenarios to take away like easy prize cards potentially from your opponent, take away the option for the easy prize cards. So it does have some viability there. And like I said, it is good against the Mad Party and the Spiritomb, but with those not being super popular and Rapid Strike not being in like the top 2 most popular decks right now, I would definitely consider maybe cutting the Mew and just being like, all right, we're just gonna make our Pikarom matchup worse, which was still a bad matchup. Like Pikarom was just a tough, the way the decks line up against each other is just a tough matchup for TempoZard. Just like, all right, we'll just take that tough matchup, and then Rapid Strike gets worse, but it's not super popular, and just kind of free up the spot, because it doesn't like win us. We don't just like get Mew in play and then we beat Rapid Strike, or we don't get Mew in play and then beat Pikarom. It's still very much a close matchup. It's almost like we like kind of need it in play, and we have to kind of hope that it does enough to keep us in the game, more so than just winning us the game. Like it does in some other decks for some matchups. It's kind of like, oh, I got Mew in play at the right time, stop this play, I kind of win the game from here. But it doesn't quite do that for us in the TempoZard. And then of course we have Mewtwo and Oricorio for Welder 1 boss. The second boss is definitely something I want to try out. I haven't gotten around to it yet, but that'd be something, if you guys are looking for something to change up, just try out a second boss for sure. Haven't tried it out yet, but definitely want to give it a shot. 4 Switch, of course, 4 Crystal, 4 Nets, 4 Quick Ball on the 2 Cherish Ball. I've been seeing some people play Comms alongside Cherish Balls instead of Cherish Balls, and I definitely want to give that a shot as well. But the Cherish Balls just feel so clean at getting your most likely initial early game attackers in the Reshizard or Heatran. So many matchups where you want those over the Cramorant early on. And it always feels awkward to calm stuff back into the deck, because I always feel like most of the cards you draw into, you're going to want to put into play. But sometimes there is scenarios, or if you can like scoop up net a second Jirachi, calm that away. And having the option for any Pokemon is definitely better than only having the option for GX Pokemon. However, you have to make sure in the early game, in the late game, the comms get really good, or even in the mid game. But in the early game, especially when you're getting Marnied and stuff, don't have a lot of options. Especially when you get Marnied, you're like, well, if I need a hard reset here, I need to find Dedenne. If you Stellar Wish into a Cherish Ball, you don't have another Pokemon in hand, and it was a Comm, gonna get stuck. Now I have seen lists, like I said, play Cherish Balls and Comms, which I definitely think is interesting. And another thing to try out potentially, what I'm kind of playing over those spots right now though is the Escape Rope and the Pokegear. And the Pokegear is basically just like, I mean, it's almost like a 5th Welder, not really, but it increases our chance, you know. If we see this instead of a Welder, there's a good chance this hits us a Welder in the situation most of the time. Because if we dig through our deck quite a bit, we don't see a Welder, but we see the Pokegears, and there's still probably, you know, 3 to 4 Welder in the deck. play the Pokegear, get the Welder. There's also a ton of awkward scenarios that can come up where we can use Mewtwo to reset and then play the Pokegear over using Stellar Wish, which can be really helpful. Either we don't have a Jirachi or we want to use Stellar Wish to find something else. So that can also be a cool scenario that comes up. It comes up most often with Mewtwo recovering boss and then Pokegear get boss. If we have like an attacker in our active that we just want to leave in our active, we're not trying to attack with anything else, but we want a boss for the turn. Like if we use Reshizard as the main one, if we use Reshizard and they hit it, it didn't knock it out, or they just weren't able to even hit it for the turn, or they went and KO'd something else, and we're just like, well, now we can just go Mewtwo, put boss on top, and then Pokegear into it, because they didn't like reset us, and like they didn't knock out the Reshizard, so they just like hit it or sniped around it or something. So we're not able to bring up Jirachi into the active and use Stellar Wish. They didn't take a knockout, so we can't use Oricorio. Or we're in kind of like a stalemate spot where they're just kind of setting up something for us to knock out, but it doesn't really let us win the game, and they're kind of setting up for like a reset stamp play or something. Then yeah, being able to just go Mewtwo, put boss on top, Pokegear into it has been a play that I've done quite a bit actually. So there's that. I don't know, it just feels like it has a lot of flexibility in the deck to help us find what we need a little bit more aggressively. So I do like the Pokegear, but like I said, some people have been playing comms like basically over these two spots of the escape rope and the Pokegear, so I wouldn't hate trying that out and see how I feel about the Pokecoms, because being able to find like any Pokemon in your deck would be really nice, I'm not gonna lie. And then the last one is the escape rope that I want to talk about, which I've gotten a ton of value out of. It's really hard for our opponent to consistently play around escape route throughout a whole game, especially in something like the Players Cup qualifiers. It's a closed deck list qualifier, so your opponent doesn't know the exact 60 you have, so having something like an escape rope can just be really, really good in kind of like something your opponent's not playing around, right? You sit down against a TempoZard, that's not at the forefront of your mind, is that they play escape rope. You're like, oh, they have Cramorant, so if I play Mew, I want to get that to protect my bench potentially. There are other early aggressive attackers, so the Reshizard and Heatran, and then towards the late game, I want to make it as awkward as possible for them to take those big one-hit KOs with the Blacephalon, but you're not like really worried about escape rope. So I've gotten a ton of plays off, or almost off, where I like whiff the escape rope, but if I hit it, it would have been like really, really good. But there's tons of situations that have come up where I just hit the escape rope and I just win because of it. Really good against ADP specifically, because if we can get that early knockout on something like a Dedenne or, a Zacian with the Heatran, and then we like whiff the Welder, but we hit the escape rope, we can escape rope, which pushes their ADP to the bench and brings up pretty much anything else that's very easy for us to KO, knock out that, and then we just need to use Blacephalon to take the last knockout, or maybe a Cramorant to snipe a Dedenne, something like that. So very good against ADP specifically is the escape rope. Also Luke Metal, because Luke Metal, if they're not attacking you, they're hiding behind a doll, or they have something really big in the active with a coding energy, and they're like, I'm just going to Intrepid Sword for my turn. And then if you play escape rope, force up a Zacian that doesn't have a coding energy or something, get to take a hit on that or take a knockout on that. It's super powerful as well. So the escape rope is also really good for those reasons. I feel like it's very good in specifically like these qualifier tournaments where your opponent just doesn't know your list, unlike the online tournaments. They don't know your list, so one of cards like this are just really, really powerful overall. It's actually kind of changed my mindset on playing stuff like one of reset stamps in decks. I don't have one in here right now, but I would definitely maybe consider it. But other decks that usually don't play reset stamp, like ADP and stuff, I think it'd be a really good addition, just because in these qualifiers at the very least, because once again, your opponent doesn't know your list, so they're not going to play around reset stamp. No one really plays around reset stamp in ADP. And then you just have it, and then they're going to be in that much more trouble. So if you guys are just looking for cards to include in decks in general that when you don't normally play them, would be stuff like escape rope or reset stamp, even something like an escape rope and a turn twist, maybe stuff like that. I think is pretty cool right now to play for the qualifiers, because yeah, it's not open deck list, which everyone is super used to right now with the online tournament scene. All right, the next deck I want to talk about, and I'm not going to try and pronounce their name. They did get top 4 in the most recent Limitless tournament with this single strike build. I'll put their name down there, but I'm not going to try and pronounce it. Single strike, which is really cool, and I haven't played any games with this deck, but I thought the idea behind it was really, really cool, and their overall build. So the first thing to talk about here is the capture energy. Now, a lot of people have been playing stuff like level balls recently in single strike, because one of the main things you're trying to find here is Houndour, but level ball has very it falls off really hard. Once you get your Houndours and play, level ball only finds Houndour, or I guess in this list specifically, it does find the Fion, but Fion is like not something we're looking to aggressively find throughout the game constantly, although in some situations it's pretty good to have. And they only play 1 Tower of Darkness, so if you play like a heavy Tower of Darkness plus level ball count, then you could like level ball for the extra Houndours, Tower of Darkness them away, but otherwise they lose value really, really fast. But they have a heavy capture energy line in here, which I really like the idea of, because it's your energy for turn, which means you attach it for turn, and then you can search out the Houndour. And then it's also an energy in play for you for the future, instead of like a level ball where you play it, get the Houndour, but then all your future level balls kind of stink. Now, there is a little bit of drawback with the capture energy as well, but I think it's a little bit less so than level balls, because Capture energy aren't that great as the game continues. You can't like attach multiple capture energy and then get to the big G-Max 1 blow because it does need fighting, colorless. But I think it is a little bit better than like the heavy level balls, and I definitely want to try out this list for sure, see how it feels. But I like the idea of the capture energy for sure. And then of course the rest of the energy line, 4 single strike of course, and then 3 basic energy. The other interesting thing about this list is there is that Fion, but there's also 2 escape rope and 3 boss and a great catcher, so very heavy on the gust effects. And I think I really like this as well. And what they're going for here is they're kind of like, I can't afford to G-Max 1 blow too many times. Like, it's easy to get the first G-Max 1 blow maybe, but then the second one gets harder and the third one gets even harder. But if we just draw 3 prize cards from literally anything else with the first attack from the V with 180 or the 100 with the beatdown from the VMAX, or even using the Stone Journer. They got a 1 of Stone Journer in here, which I'm not sure I like or not. It can potentially switch up the prize trade a little bit, but it can be bossed around. I feel like it's just in here for maybe to Decidueye, or even to help against Zamazenta, I guess, but it doesn't seem too ridiculously good. I'm not a huge fan of the Stone Journer. I don't know exactly what it's for though, so if I figured it out, I might like it a little bit more, but I actually have no idea why there's a Stone Journer in here, to be honest, because it doesn't seem like it would beat Decidueye for you or anything like that. But yeah, if we can get 3 prize cards from those 2 attacks, or even the Stone Journer, like I said, I guess it has a 2 energy attacks, so you can KO like really small things pretty aggressively with that maybe. But yeah, if we can get those 3 prize cards against like a VMAX deck, if we just like KO a Crobat, and I don't know, what are we up against in this situation? If KO a Crobat and like a Jirachi, and we're up against Rapid Strike, and then we're just like, all right, G-Max 1 blow, knock out your VMAX, that's game. Because we used Fion and we used Escape Rope, and we have so many gust effects in here to just kind of play around whatever their active is. And just KO smaller stuff, and then be like 1 G-Max 1 blow to clean up the game. Or even maybe we G-Max 1 blow first, and then we go Escape Rope, KO something smaller, and then boss, close out the game on something like a Dedenne. That's also like a line we could take. Or we could go for like multiple G-Max 1 blows. There's also that line to play through as well. Like there is 4 Earn in here, there's 4 single strike energy, it's a 4/4 Houndoom. Like we can also do that with this build. But I really like this build because it adds that extra line of play. Because I feel like where single strike does start to fall apart is trying to set up many back-to-back G-Max 1 blows, but with this list you don't really or you're not as forced down that line because you have so much so many gust effects and so much just kind of board disruption. I don't know, what do you want to call Escape Rope and Fion? Board disruption, whatever. It makes their bench Pokemon become their active Pokemon, which means it can be easier to KO than their active Pokemon, which can make your prize trade so much easier. So I'm really excited to try this list out. I haven't given it a shot yet, but I really like the ideas behind it with the capture energy to help us find the Houndours more aggressively with the 4 capture. And later in the game, like I said, they become a little bit redundant and you're going to have to kind of just discard them more so than anything. But and then also all these gust effects, 3 boss, great catcher, 2 escape rope. There's no switch in here. There's 2 air balloons for a little bit more mobility. But yeah, we can just be using beatdown or the 180 attack from the Urshifu V, which the name of it is eluding me right now. But just take knockouts on other stuff that is not whatever their big VMAX is in the active, and then eventually build up into getting the big 1-hit KO. And then that's like our last 3 prize cards. It also can help us like play around reset stamp and stuff. So yeah, really interesting list. Really cool to see it make that top 4 at the Limitless tournament, which is one of the bigger tournaments every single week. So yeah, really cool list, I thought, and I thought it had some really cool ideas in it. So this is another list that I want to share with you guys. Really cool list, really cool ideas in it to help Single Strike maybe be a contender for a potential top deck. I have not considered it to be that for a long time now. Initially, when it first came out, I was like, this seems pretty cool. It seems pretty good. But my opinion of it has definitely come down to where it probably should be. But who knows? Maybe it just hasn't been cracked yet. Maybe no one's cracked the code of Single Strike yet. And this might be close, if not it. And if this is it, I don't think it's going to be quite a top deck. But who knows? Who knows? Definitely have to give it a shot. But guys, that's going to do it for today's video. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll be coming at you guys with these videos every week where I just go over a couple deck lists that I liked and break them down. And yeah, see you next week.